Hunter Biden's lawyers blast Congress. We know that Congress, James Comer, Jim Jordan, and Jason Smith from the House Ways and Means Committee have all sent letters to Hunter and his lawyers demanding access to certain documents. Well, now Hunter's lawyers have responded and they're not too happy about it. We've got the whistleblowers who are responding to Hunter's lawyers because Hunter's lawyers are calling the whistleblowers not really whistleblowers. Oversight has a response and the White House has a response to all of this. But we've also got, in reaction to Hunter's lawyer's letter, this clip of the Biden bagman shuffle. You can see there's this interesting exchange happening right here. These two, Biden and this woman, are talking. Hunty and this fella over here, they come to a deal and they just shuffle right out of the way to continue on with their criminality. And we're going to get into that, but first, let's see exactly what the letter looks like. This comes from Hunter's lawyers over to Congress, and you can see it was sent via email to the big three who are now appointed to the impeachment inquiry to investigate the Biden crime family. Here, James Comer, Oversight, shout out. Jim Jordan and Jason Smith, shout out to those three dudes. On September 6th, we saw that there was a request for documents that came from them to Hunter, and this is in response to the request. They say, "I write, Congress punk losers." This is Hunter's lawyer writing. "I write in response to your September letter to me and Christopher Clark, the other lawyer, requesting various documents that were exchanged between our law firms. You said in your letter that this was pursuant to your commitment to impartial justice." Commitment to impartial justice. "For months now, one or more of you or others acting at your behest have done everything you can, Congress, to interfere," listen to this, "interfere with impartial justice," "and the proper workings of a criminal investigation involving our client, Robert Hunter Biden. In fact, Chairman Comer, you, on May 22nd, 2023, during an interview on Fox, you actually admitted your real purpose had nothing to do with proper oversight, and your committee's goal was, quote, absolutely to move the needle of political support for the 2024 election," which I'm all in favor of at this point. It's political blood sport season. Anybody who's still playing this game like anything here is apolitical is like living in fantasy land. It is political blood sport. I hate to say it. I wish it weren't that way, but they started it. So here was the question. In response to a question posed, is this going to move the needle with the media? Which is actually, hang on. Comer, has this moved the needle with the media? Comer responds, absolutely. There's no question. You look at the polling, and right now, Donald Trump is 7 points ahead of Joe Biden, trending upward. Biden is trending downward. And I believe that the media is looking around, scratching their head, and they're realizing the American people are keeping up with our investigation. Yeah, well, it's because it's not necessarily just by his own words. He didn't say anything about the 2024 election in that statement, did he? No. He says that the polls that are related to 2024 might be relevant, but the polls are also relevant to his criminal conduct. So there's a perfectly good explanation for that. And by the way, just as an aside, I'm on team, I don't care if it's political. Impeach for politics. Who cares? They've already done it twice, and then they also indicted him 4 times for pure politics. And I've been saying this, if the Republicans don't play the same game, they're going to come after them too, and their kids. So it's time they start also learning how to do this stuff. So your blatant efforts, this is Hunter's lawyer writing to Congress, also impartial justice. Do you hear how now they are concerned about the weaponization of the law? Incredible, right? Your blatant efforts achieved your goal as the U.S. Attorney of Delaware today filed gun charges against our client, which are, 0.1% of what the actual charges should be. It's like a speeding ticket when you've driven a bus full of children into the Grand Canyon and everybody's dead. They're like, oh, well, you were going a little fast. Don't worry about it. Like, what? Charge it, which is a bad visual. Sorry to those kids in that visual. Charges that are unprecedented when not part of some other criminal conduct and have been found unconstitutional by federal courts of appeals, and who reversed his earlier decision that such charges were not warranted. Your improper interference from Congress now by investigating the Biden DOJ and Biden's corruption with his son is now affecting a federal prosecutor is a much greater threat to society than the 11 days that Mr. Biden possessed an unloaded gun. He's under attack. Hunter's under attack by Congress, and it's a weaponization of the investigation. Well, in this unprecedented display of, partisan congressional manipulation, your committees have been willing to pretend to provide a forum for real whistleblowers. He's talking garbage about Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, both guys who we played a lot from here, who have absolute credibility. They were with the IRS for a long time, and they were literally a part of the investigation, who were investigating Hunter, but he's maligning them, providing a forum for real whistleblowers when your goal was to misuse the process to dump protected tax information onto the public. And they were also threatening the IRS whistleblowers, saying that they should be charged with crimes for blowing the whistle. To give a forum to the so-called agents, this is going to be the word of the year, so-called. Hunter's so-called lawyers, Hunter's so-called, prosecutors, and so on. And their representatives violate federal laws. You even allowed the Oversight Committee to allow Marjorie Taylor Greene to display a naked photo of Hunter. You put Hunter's wee-wee in the congressional record on C-SPAN. Conduct that is wholly inappropriate by a sitting congresswoman. Can you explain how all of this promotes impartial justice? All your efforts to date, as you admitted, well, impartial justice would mean, if they're going to be rummaging around the FBI through Melania's underwear, I guess we could post pictures of Hunter's crack in Congress. This is how it goes. Impartial means everybody gets held to the same standard. So all your efforts to date, writes Hunter's lawyers, as you admitted, were to move forward the convenient for your political purpose but totally dishonest claim that Mr. Biden was treated more favorably than others and that he would get a sweetheart deal. Your most recent letter repeated this false statement in your, quote, serious concerns, questioning whether the department has handled a case involving his son in an impartial manner is consistent with other prosecutions. So there can be no real confusion here. Even though your stated agenda is not as you claim, we actually agree that the department has not handled a case involving the son in an impartial manner. It is not that Biden was given a sweetheart deal. It's just the opposite. Listen to this claim. Mr. Biden was and will be charged for conduct no one else would be charged for because as the president's son, he's been subject to your relentless efforts to inject partisan Republican politics into the process. Hunter is actually a bigger victim. Nobody else would get charged with a gun crime like this. And maybe that's true. And I'm actually in agreement that I would like to see Hunter actually charged with real crimes, right? I think that this is kind of a scam, as we said yesterday. It's like a speeding ticket when you ran a bus full of kids off the Grand Canyon. It's like a joke. I actually kind of agree with him. It is kind of a joke here, but that's because it's a joke of a benefit, not because it's a joke that he's a victim. There is mounds of evidence of criminality here. They could charge him. And again, we're not talking about Joe Biden. We're talking about Hunter Biden with other tax crimes, other, prostitution type crimes, other drug crimes, trafficking crimes, whatever, a lot. And the fact that he's got this little stupid gun form crime, one of the charges of which is probably unconstitutional in the first place, it's all a scam. Like, we get it. It's all just a mirage. But he's saying this makes him a victim, right? He's going to reframe this gift as a victim. Ironically then, your requests actually provide a vehicle to demonstrate the truth, show how completely wrong your claims of preferential treatment have been, and display how differently and unfairly Hunty has been treated. And it's going to expose how your committee has been trying to interfere with the correct outcome, which in their opinion should have been no charges, through a 5-year investigation. Thus, without accepting your premise that any attorney provided any information to the media, they said that Hunter's people were leaking this stuff, we provide you with the following. They're responding to their request for all the things. We provide you with the following: communications and documents in our possession responsive to your requests. Oh, good. Additional communication between Biden's lawyers and U.S. attorneys in Delaware. Good. Can't wait to see those. Several letters written to the U.S. Attorney's Office about breaches of tax information under the rules of criminal procedure. And in addition to what you requested, a letter to Merrick Garland. We're including a letter from Biden's counsel to the district attorney in Delaware. That letter compiles dozens of improper disclosures by the IRS agents. Okay, so this is their "you should charge the whistleblower" letter. He's saying, I'm going to send you the "we think you should charge the whistleblower" letter to you. If your intent is to honestly ensure impartial justice, we'll be watching and see if you do. You should investigate the misconduct of your own committees. Oh man, Comer, he's got some letters he's got to respond to. Big Fanny was getting very angry at him, making a lot of noise, making a big stink. And now this guy is doing the same. Knowing with your practice that has been to publicly disclose materials and dump them onto your websites in a self-serving way, which we appreciate. I love the dumps here. We get to review them here on the show. You will no doubt try to spin, explain, or mischaracterize the documents, but any person without a political agenda will see the following. I can't wait until they release these documents. It should be fun. They say, Hunter says, for almost 5 years, Weiss and his staff conducted a wide-ranging investigation, all done to delay this, right, and allow statute of limitations to expire. So who cares how long it took? It should happen quickly. Trump has been prosecuted very quickly. Why hasn't Hunter been prosecuted for all the different RICO charges that somebody could bring against him in the crime family? Documents subpoenaed or obtained by warrants and individuals interviewed. It was a very broad investigation. As part of the investigation, Biden's lawyers provided extensive material and made several presentations that showed various allegations. Not only was there no evidence of willful tax violations, right? You mean like the willful tax violation, like when he said that his sex club was a business expense? Do you mean that one? The $70,000 a year sex club as a business expense? That's not a willful tax violation? violation? That's interesting. But any questions, some misunderstood and misstated by the so-called whistleblowers, were explained by mistakes. Hunter made a bunch of mistakes. Some years, Biden did not know any taxes because he was already overpaid. And the gun charges have never brought the type of standalone charge being contemplated now. I believe this, actually. This part I believe, right? Okay, just like we saw a garbage, useless plea deal that was never intended to even happen, they would not have even had a plea deal. There was not even a real request for Hunter to plead guilty until the whistleblower started speaking out. Then they had to create the plea deal May 2023. Then they tried to get it through with a broad immunity deal. The judge asked a couple questions, wrecked the whole process, and that was already a scam. Like, remember when we went through that, the judge said, have you ever done this before? They said, no, never, ever, no precedent at all. So of course, why would this also, like, if they're going to actually charge Hunter with something, why wouldn't they also charge him with something they've never done before? Something that's a total slap on the wrist, that's basically insane, so they can make all these arguments. And so there's not any precedent for the penalty or the sentencing and all these things. You just say, judge, it's like the first time ever he's a victim here. The DOJ charged him with a crime that is mostly meaningless. And they can say it right here. They say it's been brought in other cases for conduct that Hunter has never done. Right. And it's all by design to give them this argument to make. The idea to create a non-litigated resolution was made by Weiss's office. So Weiss said we should give you a non-prosecution agreement. We should give you immunity. The same David Weiss who just got promoted, the same guy who botched the deal, just got promoted. And Hunter's team, and I might probably believe them on this, the DOJ prompted the non-prosecution agreement, not the defense. Either way, I mean, the DOJ accepted it. Even if you don't believe this is true, they definitely accepted it and they tried to cram it through with Judge Norica. The change to a rare misdemeanor felony diversion only occurred after a chain of events with improper disclosures arranged by your whistleblowers. So you started interfering with this, and Biden was treated more severely than others after you got involved. And not content with your involvement, you still were involved, and the U.S. attorney reversed his offer and the decision. You continued your barrage. Right now, I think what they're going to say when Hunter challenges, oh man, this is going to be good. I mean, he's got good lawyers. I have to tell you, this is pretty good, aggressive stuff. Congress better wake up because they're working against two people here, Hunter's lawyers and the DOJ. Okay. Just because Hunter is being prosecuted by the DOJ, I would not consider that an adversarial relationship at all. So what's going to happen here is the same thing that we saw in the elections. In 2020, we were wondering, why did all of the election rules get changed so quickly? Well, Democrat groups, like forward by guys like Mark Elias and the Democracy Docket, filed lawsuits against friendly secretaries of state, Democrats. And then the Democrats said, oh no, let's just negotiate a deal with their so-called lawsuit petitioners, the plaintiffs. They're being sued. Then they came to a deal. It's the same dang thing that's happening here. And now Hunter's lawyers are going to say that we're under attack by Congress, Judge, and that's why you have to allow us to execute this immunity and diversion deal. On July 25th, Chairman Smith even went so far as to write to the federal judge and sent all the documents in, which may or may not have helped blow up the plea deal. And Hunter's lawyers, Abbe, you guys called and tried to get that document off the docket. You guys called and tried to get it removed. Following another statement, you have turned up the political heat on Hunter, resulting in his apparent attempt to prove on Mr. Biden. And now you're bringing charges. The special counsel is now bringing charges after a 5-year investigation because of you. Each of you in Congress seem intent on continuing the pressure by demanding access to all of these documents. And so, as to the last effort now aimed at us, Comer, thank you. You want documents from us? Thank you. You may have not intended it, but your demands provide the appropriate procedure to expose the truth of what happened, I'm sure. The thoroughness of the government's investigation, the lack of any factual or legal basis to support any charges beyond the failure to timely file misdemeanors that have been agreed upon, the correct non-charging resolution first discussed, the unexpected change brought by the political pressure brought by the U.S. attorney, and now what the special counsel will do to show that he's not buckling to politics. They're going to be able to expose all of it, I'm sure. Signed by Abbe Lowell over to Congress. So they're just setting this up, right? It's laying the framework. Hunter is under attack now by the DOJ. He's under attack by the Congress. He's such a victim here, even though it's the DOJ in literal cahoots, and they're just framing this to make Congress the bad guys and demand the judge honor the immunity deal because Hunter has been facing political attack and this needs to just be entered and done. So interesting letter over to Congress. Now we'll see what they do in response to that. that. But they keep telling us that there's no real evidence of here, not one iota, no scintilla of evidence, not a shred. And there have been many Democrats who continue to use that stupid phrase. But this came over from Newsmax and Greg Kelly, and they dug this up. And this is an interesting play-by-play of old Joe and Hunter, which tends to show that the whistleblowers, the bank records, the SARS, the text messages, Joe's phone calls, Joe's lunches and golf outings, his recorded video where he says, I withheld $1 billion. It all makes sense. They've been doing this stuff for years. Here's how it worked. The Biden bagman shuffle.
Political speech in South Carolina. Look who's watching Joe work the room. Joe is schmoozing everybody after the speech. See what we have shaded there? That's Hunter watching every step of the way. Next video, as Joe schmoozes at the right time, Hunter moves in. All right, Hunter moves in as soon as it turns to business. Watch and listen here.
Maybe we can work something out, man.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Well, Hunter was just telling about his firm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Law firm.
Yeah.
Do you have a card by any chance?
I do. I don't, but I'll give you my...
Well, let me give you my card.
And then I'll get in contact. I gave them all away.
Okay.
Well, that was a wonderful speech.
So then Joe goes right back to schmoozing, and watch the men step away to conduct business separately. You see it right there. That's how it worked. That's how it worked. Circumstantial.
Nice job,
but
Greg.
Devastating. Joe.
Nice job, Greg. Well done. So I think that is beautiful, right? And you can see it right there. And watch this woman's reaction when he says, yeah, we'll have to work something out. Look at this face right here. Look at that. Look at that face. She goes, huh? What do you mean? We can get that land deal? You're kidding me. I thought that the regulation said we couldn't do that. We'll have to work something out. Huh? Wow. You're telling me you can make the contract go away? She can't even believe it. And now he gets it. Okay. This guy gets it right here. This is April 22nd, 2005 from C-SPAN. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll just work something out. Here it is.
Moves in. All right. Hunter moves in as soon as it turns to business. Watch and listen here.
Maybe we can work something out, man.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Well, Hunter was just telling about his firm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Law firm.
Yeah.
Do you have a card by any chance?
I do. I don't.
No,
I'll give you
no.
my...
Well, let me give you my card.
and then I'll get in contact. I gave them all away.
Gave them all away.
Well, that was a wonderful speech.
So then Joe
Gave them all away. He was out there all night just smoozing around. Here you go. Hey, call me. My daddy. Call me. And they knew exactly what was happening here, right? And then they do the shuffle. I don't want to beat this into the ground, but I want to just rise this volume up a little bit. And I want you to see if you can hear this laugh from this guy. Okay, he takes a breath. When Joe Biden says, maybe we can work something out, he goes, yeah, we'll definitely work something out. And he gets it. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And his wife's like, holy moly. Jefferson Jackson Day dinner, South Carolina. The volume's going to be a little bit louder, but listen to this guy's breath. You can catch it, the breath.
turns to business. Watch and listen here.
Maybe we can work something out, man.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Well, Hunter was just telling about his firm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Law firm.
Yeah.
Do you have a card by any chance?
I do. I don't, but I'll give you my...
Well, let me give you my card.
and then I'll get in contact. I gave them all away.
Card.
Well, that was a wonderful speech.
So then Joe goes right back to schmoozing, and watch the men step away to conduct business separately. You see it right there. That's how it worked. That's how it worked. Circumstantial, but devastating. Joe.
Beautiful. I'm right there with Greg Kelly, man. It's almost hysterical. It's exactly what they did. Joe Biden initiated it. Hunter just took the guy and they just stepped right aside, right? That's what they do all the time. It's just amazing. So that's what you got. Now, the Democrats say stuff like that is probably going to go out to lunch, talk about the weather, and they're probably going to, stuff that's not related to Joe at all. And if Hunter got paid for that, Joe Biden didn't get paid, didn't get a Venmo transaction. There was nothing there. So, curious how that could possibly be a crime. Well, you have to put those together if you're on that side. It's obvious to the rest of us. So the Oversight Committee responded here, and, Abbe and all these people just keep trying to gaslight everybody. Here is what Empower.us said. These are the people representing the whistleblowers, and here is what Shapley attorneys say. They say Biden lawyer Abbe is peddling fiction. They say in a desperate attempt to save their client, Hunter, who has been obviously involved in this for years. Hunter's attorneys continue to press a false narrative against two whistleblowers who risk their careers to show government malfeasance in its investigation and prosecution of Biden. Attorneys for the IRS Supervisory Special Agent Gary Shapley made the following comment. They say, these materials show that the president's son repeatedly lobbied the Biden Justice Department to initiate retaliatory prosecutions of our client. Exactly. Whistleblowers made protected disclosures to Congress. It's insane to say this, but the president's son, who has direct access to the president and the entire DOJ, threatened the whistleblowers who were going to a separate branch of government with prosecution, and Hunter's daddy literally runs the executive branch. It's crazy. Talk about leverage, man. It's like you've got the entire executive branch to make your witnesses go away by threatening them with prosecution. That's exactly what they did, which is why when we say that the IRS whistleblowers and their team are heroes, they are, right? They are facing the entire onslaught of the DOJ, the FBI, who knows who else is involved there from the executive branch. So Hunter's attorneys, they have already made this argument to Judge Norica, who reviewed the whistleblower materials and rejected their baseless allegations, including their claims against grand jury secrecy violations. The whistleblower team says, the taxpayer privacy laws are written by Congress, and it gave itself authority in those laws to hear disclosures about the taxpayer info. Commissioner Werfel has made this all clear to the IRS employees. Whether Congress decides to make that information public is up to them. Mr. Lowell, who wrote the letter, is peddling a fiction that Weiss and his team were always going to let his client off the hook. But the facts are clear that in early 2022, they agreed with investigators felony tax charges were warranted, and they presented those charges to U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California. So they actually wanted more serious charges at the outset. Okay, David Weiss was the guy who was saying maybe there shouldn't be a full deal, or there should be a deal and no charges, just the diversion deal. His attempt, this is what caused the whistleblowers to be so agitated about this. His attempt to blame his client's legal troubles on politics is a brazen ploy to deflect from the fact that Biden-appointed prosecutors, whose conflict of interest should have kept them miles away, blocked felony charges against the president's son, and now they're saying he's being overcharged. It was only after hitting those political roadblocks that benefited Hunter Biden that Weiss reversed course, told the investigators he was not the deciding person, and let the felony tax evasion charges in D.C. die, right? Tristan Levitt, Jason Foster, and Mark D. Little, all over at empower.us. So shout out to the whistleblowers and their team. Now, the Oversight Committee also released a short statement on this after they got the letter. They say, IRS whistleblowers Shapley and Ziegler did everything right to obtain protected whistleblower status. Don't threaten them. They provided documents and testimony that showed not just misconduct and politicization within the DOJ, but also evidence that Hunter evaded $8.3 million in taxes. They're incredibly brave for coming forward, and they don't deserve the smear campaign being waged against them by Abbe and the rest of Hunter's legal team. And of course, I agree with that. So the question is, what is the oversight, the judiciary, the Ways and Means Committee going to uncover? The impeachment inquiry moves on. We know we now have a so-called indictment of Hunter Biden. Is Congress going to do anything about it? Well, guys like Ken Buck from Colorado are making it difficult to get anything done, at least on the impeachment front, because they're not interested in looking at reality. And as Big Fanny says, sometimes reality will hit you. But here is what he said on CNN when asked about this by Jake Tapper.
Joining us now to discuss Republican Congressman Ken Buck of the great state of Colorado. Let's start with the Hunter Biden indictment. A lot of your Republican colleagues were critical when David Weiss was named special counsel. James Comer still being critical, basically saying unless, well, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he wants to see more than Hunter Biden on gun charges. I mean, this would seem to suggest that David Weiss is pretty serious. No?
Yes. And I have to tell you, I remember when Jim Comey announced an investigation of Hillary Clinton and all the Democrats jumped up and down. And then he said that he was closing it without recommending charges, and all the Republicans jumped up and down. This is the same situation. How silly Republicans are going to look in 6 months if he's brought a gun charge, tax charges, and Foreign Agent Registration Act violation charges. Give the guy some time to develop this case. I don't agree with the plea agreement that he had before.
Wild.
But this certainly looks like he is taking it seriously. And you can't judge him until we've seen the work product.
Oh my gosh, it's such a scam, okay? This guy, I think he's just bought and paid for. He's like a Republican, he's a Democrat in Republican clothing. He makes terrible arguments. He says that David Weiss needs more more time to investigate this? It's already been 5 years. FARA and other types of crimes, does he think that they're actually going to look into them? He just says in this same clip that he needs more time to investigate it, but he also disagreed with the plea deal that he offered at the beginning, which was a scam plea deal, obviously, which is why the judge didn't allow it to happen, because it was all rigged. So I don't understand how the same person who had such horrible judgment to allow, talking about David Weiss, to allow a plea deal with Hunter to go into effect that everybody universally panned, that the judge said was basically unconstitutional or illegal, didn't allow to happen. That same guy who did all of that, you now trust to go in and do a proper investigation right now? Are you kidding? How is that reasonable? It's not. It's because they just make stuff up, right? It's obviously lunacy. So that's Ken Buck from Colorado. Hopefully he gets primaried and somebody boots him out of office. But questions about what does the White House say in response to this? Here is what Joe Biden said. Now, of course, his economy continues to fail and falter. The auto industry union workers have now gone on strike. Apparently, they want $300,000 a year, 4-day work weeks, 5 weeks of vacation, and I don't know, probably, well, I don't even want to know what else they want. We'll leave it at that. But they're not working anymore. And here's what Joe Biden says in response. Now, the media, they've got questions about him. Joe, your son has just been indicted. Anything to say about that?
The bottom line is that auto workers help create America's middle class. They deserve a contract
right now
that sustains them in the middle class. Thank you very much. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Mr. President, at what point would you get directly involved in the negotiation? Should Hunter get a pardon?
President Biden with a very brief statement and not taking any questions, although you can imagine there were a lot today. The president said...
Yeah, not going to be taking any questions there. A little bit busy. So Karine also was there to take some questions and not provide many answers. Here was the question from the media. Have you even talked to Hunter, or Joe talked to Hunter? What's up, Karine?
Can you tell us if the president has talked to his son since these charges came down yesterday?
Yeah, there's nothing new here. As I've been asked that question many times, I'm not going to get into private conversations that the president has with his family. Just not going to speak to it.
Will those conversations, though, have to change given the heightened scrutiny of these charges?
I'm just not going to get into private conversations that the president has with his family.
Private conversations, not going to talk about it. Okay, that's fine. How about some other conversations about whether the president might pardon him? Since the president does have the pardon power and his son has now been charged with the crime, Joe Biden has said that there was never anything wrong that his son did and that he's the smartest man he knows. So is anything going to happen now that he's been charged? Is a pardon coming?
Second one, will the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear and I said no.
No, there you go. So that's pretty easy answer. That's kind of the same answer that you'd expect, because they're probably going to come out and do the same thing really that Trump is doing and saying that, why would I need a pardon if I didn't do anything wrong? And I'm curious to see if they're going to start saying that the DOJ is corrupt or something like that to sort of put themselves in a better light, but it's their DOJ. And I think that the DOJ is doing exactly what they want, which is charging him with a stupid little scam charge. So Psaki, who is now getting more airtime out there on MSNBC and elsewhere, she's really explaining what the Democrat take is on this one over on MSNBC and just priming their audience about how this new conversation will go and why it's all about love. And really how this indictment, we know how the 4 indictments are helping Donald Trump because we know they're illegitimate. I think she might be thinking that maybe that same phenomenon will happen for Hunter. Problem with Hunter is that he's a bona fide, bribe-ridden, corrupt crackhead, and there's a ton of evidence to support that. So I'm not so sure that the entire country is going to rally around his mugshot if and when we get one. But you'll see, this is the same conversation that they're having. It's all about love. A lot of people get charged with crimes. A lot of people have drug addictions and so on. And apparently that allows you to be a quid pro quo bagman for your daddy president.
I mean, we have to have a rule of law, Mika and Joe. It's such a relief to hear that from people, including when it's about, as you just said, somebody who is very close to the president. I mean, first and foremost, the politics of this are a little hard to predict. But right now you have the president's son, somebody he loves deeply, somebody who has very publicly struggled with drug addiction, now facing these charges, which are serious. And I'll let Andrew do a contemplation of the legality and the process and all of that, which I know a lot of us have questions on. What is tricky to watch here, and what I think we all will be watching, is what do Republicans do with this on the Hill as it relates to their impeachment process baloney efforts, right?
Baloney.
We didn't see a lot of that yesterday, a lot of the tying of these charges to their impeachment efforts. If there are are additional charges that we see from the Department of Justice that Andrew just alluded to, I suspect they would try to do that. But right now, what we're looking at, and I think on the politics of this, you know, millions of Americans have dealt with family members who have dealt with drug addiction, who've dealt with alcohol addiction, who have dealt with a range of addiction. My bet is right now this is a heartbroken president in the White House who is worried about his son. And we're all watching to see kind of what happens with this. So, Andrew, my question for you. Yeah, I was going to ask Andrew because I'm just curious because we're all trying to figure this out. What happens exactly next here, right? There's a lot of talk, which is important for all.
All right, so we're going to skip over that one. But Jen, she's right. You know, it's just about love, America. And so if you love your kids, you'll also understand the love that Joe has for his crackhead bagman son. And we probably should look the other way on all of these things. The Republicans are being pretty mean to him, you know. He's a real good guy, smartest man Joe knows, and he's definitely not a criminal. So we'll, of course, continue to cover this. I'm very hopeful that we get a nice letter from James and Jim and from Jason, because they all should be very irritated that Abbe Lowell is talking to them like that. I hope they have a response that is appropriate in return. Of course, we'll continue to cover it, my friends. Be looking forward to seeing you as we do. Thank you for subscribing and hitting that like button wherever you're watching it, and we'll see you on the next one.